Welcome to the Houston High Hockey broadcast here tonight, actually. Hopefully, you're not watching this tonight as it's getting rather late. But this is just a bit of a pregame show to preface tomorrow night's game at Glennallen at 6 p.m. I know that a lot of people may not have tuned in to last night's game. For those of you that didn't, big home game for the Hawks. They end up losing to Wasilla, but not before they forced overtime. Wasilla takes the win 2-1. We are going to have a bit of a pregame show and just talk today for a couple minutes that you can see as a separate video. This is because at the Glennallen game tomorrow night, that's the 19th of January at 6 p.m., Houston's take it on Glennallen. We might have video on the site. We for sure will have audio on Glennallen Radio's site, and thought it might be good to plug them one last time for those of you that weren't tuned in last night. If you want to listen to the game tomorrow at Glennallen, you can simply go to KCAM's radio site by typing in Glennallen Radio into Google. Their page is the first one to pop up. You can type or click on the Listen to AM 790 box on the top left of that screen. It'll take you right to the game as soon as it starts. Plugs out of the way. Todd, what'd you think of last night's game?
Well, it was a great game. I think the Hawks surprised Wasilla a little bit. When they played before, I think the score was 5-2.
4-1.
4-1. Okay, so I knew there was a few goals deficit there in the Big Lake Lions Club Classic tournament. So I didn't. It didn't really seem like Wasilla came out slow or anything either. The Hawks. Definitely wanted to beat Wasilla. It was senior night, a lot of seniors on the team. I think a lot of them really felt like that would have been a great way to have their senior night was to beat a 4A school. And Wasilla was a little bit surprised. I mean, the Hawks were still pretty badly outshot, but of course Riley had a great game. What did he have? 96 save percentage or something?
96% save percentage, 50
Yeah.
saves on 52 shots. Great performance last night. He earned the first star of the game. A great way to send off the seniors. You know, they don't end up with the win, but a hard fought game, a close game. One of the best games of high school hockey I've seen in a long time. If you didn't see it, either in person or on the broadcast on Wednesday night, the 17th, I strongly recommend you go to our videos. Check that out. Give it a listen. Give it a watch. It was an incredible thing to see. Senior night, a lot of good conversation. Had Mikey Spidell as my color guy. He did a great job. We kind of rambled for a bit on the rest of the season and the game. It was a fun one to watch, a fun one to talk about. I'm sure we'll be going back to that one for the rest of the season. Let's look at our stat leaders really quick right now. If you remember, we did this earlier in the year, right before the Hutchinson game, and in just a few short weeks, things had changed up quite a bit. Reed Humphreys now leads the Hawks in points. He's got a total of 29 points, 17 goals, 12 assists. Behind him is Kai Kingery, a bit more lopsided on the goals and assists. Kai has 15 goals, 5 assists, but he's still putting up 20 points. He takes the number 2 spot. Aiden Ottengana misses both Hutchinson games, doesn't put up any points against Wasilla. That's the only 3 games that the Hawks have played so far this year. He's still sitting at 17 points in third. Riley Scott has a total of 15 points, 6 goals, 9 assists, and Isaiah Squires with a total of 9 goals for the Hawks and 4 assists sits at 5th place with 13 points.
I'd like to just talk about Riley Scott for a second there. The last couple, well, he's a junior this year, and he did get a little bit of playing time as a freshman. He's always been a real hustler, so coach would give him a little time as a freshman. He got a lot more time last year as a sophomore, but just didn't seem to get on the board on the score sheet very often. But this year as a junior, he's really starting to put it together. Not only does he still have the hustle and just the hard work every single time he goes out on the ice, but it's nice to see that he's getting rewarded a little bit too for that effort.
Well, the Hawks coaching staff has asked a lot of him this year. Injuries have riddled the Hawks, sickness. There's been a lot of guys that have not been able to play in some games. Riley Scott's been there for every single game. I was just looking at games played. He's there every single game. He's been a key part of the Hawks offense, and he's really stepped up as far as center, as far as offense go. He played wing for a while. He played center a couple times, but when Tyler Shivers was out there for that middle part of the season, Riley steps up to first line. They don't have a center. Coach is asking for volunteers. Riley's like, "I'll do it, coach." He steps in there. He's out there winning faceoffs. He's working hard. He's really adjusted to that position well, and now he's down there on the Hawks' second line last night with Isaiah Squires and Blake Rogers. Still doing a great job centering those two. And even though I would say that the Hawks' first line is definitely the more dangerous of the two top lines right now, that second line last night of Rogers, Squires, and Scott was nothing to be sneezed at. They had a good performance. They hung in there. They did what they need to do. They worked hard. It was good to see. It was a good performance from the Hawks, both senior leadership and also more veteran experienced players last night.
Yeah, you definitely saw that. They were at times had Wasilla bottled up in the zone, and it's because all three of that line is really they're real hard workers, and then I've also just noticed Riley's stick handling skills and his passing skills and everything else has improved a lot this year. So it's been good to watch his effort that has been solid all 3 years of high school start to pay off with him getting rewarded with some goals and assists.
Before we start, or actually finish with a quick touch up on the rest of the Hawks season, let's go to an interview with Hayden Shivers. I asked Sebastian Nichols at Houston High School today to do an interview for me with Hayden. Hayden, of course, gets the game tying goal last night to send things into overtime, tied it up at 1-1 late in the third period. So let's head over to that interview and see what Hayden and Sebastian had to say earlier today.
Hi guys, I'm here with Hayden Shivers. He's number 71 for Houston Hockey. So last night we had senior night and we were down 0-1 and he scored a game-tying goal. Now,
Yeah.
what was your reaction to that?
Well, I saw Reed go to the like, hey, I learned that you should probably crash the net whenever anybody scores, and the coaches trying to put it in our heads to go to the net when anybody shoots. So I was like, all right, I'll do that. And lucky enough, the puck hit the crossbar and I was there, perfect spot.
There and it
Yeah,
just went in.
went in. It was
And what was
great feeling.
what was the team's reaction to that?
Everybody was just electrified. It was insane.
They were like, "Whoa, dude, we
Yeah,
scored!"
insane.
Yeah. So, and how do you think senior night went last night?
I think it was a really good, it was the best team that I've ever been to.
You guys played like super excellent.
Played super good. Like, the crowd helped us a lot. The more people there, the better game we played before a game.
And how do you think the team played together?
Team played. We did pretty good. First period, we really came together and played our systems. Second period, we really took it to it. We fell one goal short, but we had to just keep digging. It's only one shot to tie it up, two shots to win it. Then third period, we looked a little tired, but I was running two forward lines and 2-4 defense. It's going to happen. We do it overtime. We just couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And it just crumbled a little bit.
Well, see, Wasilla's got a lot more players than you guys. So when you guys
Yeah.
get tired, you don't really have much subs. Like,
They have 3 good lines and 3 good defensive lines.
yeah. And we got less players. All right. Well, Hayden, that was a great interview. Thank you.
All right.
So that was Hayden Shivers and Sebastian Nichols. Big thanks to Sebastian. He covered for me today. I was stuck in Anchorage. He got that interview for the pregame show. Did a great job on it. Hopefully we see a little bit more of him here later in the season, maybe towards regions. It's nice to have some other guys helping out with the broadcast, taking a little bit of the burden off my shoulders from doing those interviews. So let's look at the rest of the season really quick before we end things here. Hawks have 2 games this weekend, conference games against Glennallen. Like we said, tomorrow night, make sure you're tuning into KCAM for the audio. We may or may not have video and audio on our site. Hopefully Saturday we are back on our site just as normal, live from Kenny Lake, as Houston and Glennallen-Kenny Lake play the second of their 2 games at 10 a.m. Saturday morning. That's January 20th. And I will be joined by some of the Glennallen broadcasters. They're going to be, I think, running color for me on that. I might be doing color or play-by-play or helping out in some way, shape, or form with them on Friday night.
You're not sure yet how
Not
it's
sure
gonna
yet.
go.
We're
So.
gonna. I'm sure we'll hash that out tomorrow. It's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to it. They've been very gracious. Can't thank them enough for being willing to collaborate here and team up for these two games. Glennallen always a fun team for the Hawks to play. A bunch of stand-up guys on the team, and as well as their coaching staff, their broadcasting staff, their managers. Definitely my favorite team to play when I was in high school.
Yeah, Glen Ellen has always been a great school with just great people, and I would say that in some ways, Glen Allen's radio broadcast inspired you a little bit to do this because it was always so much fun when, at least for family, to listen to the games on the radio when you couldn't get to Glen Allen. But so in Glen Allen, when you travel to Glen Allen, you play Friday night in Glen Allen, right? And then Saturday morning is in Kenny Lake. So
And that wasn't the way they did it. I've only been to Glennallen one time in high school. We had some weather issues last year where they ended up coming and playing us at Big Lake. Back in that day, that was before they were technically combined. They were just the Glennallen Panthers. Now they're Glennallen-Kenny Lake. So they're splitting things up a bit. Should be fun. I've never been to Kenny Lakes before, but I'm looking forward to it. Should be a good time.
it's supposed to be a little cold.
It's supposed to be a little cold. Feeling bad for referees Steve Woods and Hugh Tao, who are also heading out there to two-man the games. Been talking to both of them. I know they're looking forward to that. Starting next week, though, we're coming right back on a Monday. Away game at Palmer at 7 p.m. from the Palmer Ice Rink. If you're local, get out there, support the guys on their last week of the regular season. If you're not, make sure you tune in 7 o'clock right here on the Houston High Broadcast Channel. I'll tell you my impressions of Palmer, but just from what you've seen in the past, Todd, what are you looking for here on Monday?
Well, I think Palmer's definitely a team that Houston can beat, and that would be well, all of these games here are really great games for the Hawks to play. They're tuning up for regions. They had a great game against Wasilla. Hopefully that will give them some momentum going into Glen Allen. Glen Allen's a team they can beat, but they're going to be competitive. Glen Allen's never going to stop playing, and they're going to play the entire game, and it's usually a couple goals difference. It has been in the last few years, but
Strong
still
goaltending from
great,
Glennallen as
great
well.
goaltending. Nikki French, she is a junior this year, so so then Monroe, which are going to be really tough games, but they should be competitive. And Palmer, and if they are able to beat Palmer, Palmer's a little weaker, not weak by any stretch, but they are weaker this year than they have been in the past. So I think Wasilla beat Palmer by several goal difference. So definitely a team that they can beat, and it would be a great momentum booster before they head up to Fairbanks to play Monroe.
Yeah, I think you touched on all of it. Palmer's definitely a team the Hawks can beat if they play like they did last night against Wasilla. I think you play like that, you beat Palmer, and momentum coming into these last weeks is key. You want to just keep rolling, keep building, getting ready to go into regions.
Yeah.
On Tuesday, the Hawks are playing the Service Cougars. That's going to be at Big Lake. I know we said senior night was the last game, home game, but we lied because we got a late game scheduled with Service. Make sure you come out to that one as well, supporting the guys if you're local. If not, tune in Tuesday at 7 p.m. There's also a JV game at 5. We're going to do our best to cover that one. It's going to be cutting it a little close on time, but we know there are some parents and grandparents of some of the younger kids that don't get to see their guys play as much. And it's important that they're able to do that. So we're going to do our best to make it out there by 5, cover that JV game. And then, of course, we'll cover the varsity game at 7. Hawks have a couple days off, 2 last practices before they head up to Fairbanks for the last 2 regular season games of the year against the toughest opponent in the Great Land Hockey Conference, and that's Monroe Catholic. 2 big conference games against 2 teams that so far are undefeated in region play.
League play, yeah.
So it's going to be very important games as far as seeding goes for regions, and as well as sending a message to the other team about who's going to be the team to beat heading into regions.
Yeah, and the way regions will work too is because there are 6 teams in the league. That the top 2 teams seeding will have a bye the first evening. So finishing strong for the Hawks, getting one of those 2 spots would be good. Finishing in the first seed would be even better because then you play the 4th seed. But really, the way it goes with hockey is if you want to win a championship, you got to beat everyone eventually. So they just need to take care of business, and if they play like they did against Wasilla the rest of the way out, they have a very good shot of winning state this year.
No, I agree. Make sure that you're tuning in for those regions games. We don't have the full schedule yet. We'll have to see what happens at the end of this week, at the end of next week. But when we do, we'll probably have another video or 2 like this, maybe get some interviews from the players, go over stats, all leading up to the region championship. And that is 2 weeks away at this point. Early February, I think, right? And
Yep.
we're looking forward to that.
First weekend of February.
Houston and Glennallen are co-hosting it at the Big Lake Rec Center. Again, if you're a local fan or a hockey enthusiast of any kind, get out there, support the guys, whether it's Houston, whether it's one of the other teams. It means a lot when you've got fans in the stands, and state hockey or region hockey is good hockey to watch.
Yes, it is.
So that's going to do it for us for tonight. Make sure you're tuning in again to those Glennallen games tomorrow. We hope to see you there. Until then, I'm Isaac Smoldon for Todd Smoldon. It's been a pleasure. So have a good rest of the night, and tune in tomorrow for the Houston High Hockey live broadcast.
Here's a final straw.